Hey, this is Bill Raymond. If you've ever set up a Jekyll site, you know it can look a little bit boring, so why not add a featured image to every post? I'm going to show you how you can use data to do that, and even set a default featured image if you don't have one. Let's get started. In this video, I'm going to show you how to add a featured image above any post. So anytime you go to a Jekyll site and you see the list of posts and you select one, there should be an image that appears over the title. To do this, we are going to have to get ourselves set up, so I'm just going to walk you through real quick what I have here. I've got Visual Studio Code. I created a folder called Jekyll Featured Images. If you want to clone this repo, you can do so by going down into the description. Now, I am going to assume that you already know how to set up the Minima site, how to copy over the Minima theme files into your project, and how to use basic Git capability. If you don't know how to do that, go to my playlists. I have a whole section of videos that teach you how to use GitHub with Visual Studio and how to use Jekyll with Visual Studio. Watch those videos and then come back. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. I did create a new branch here called Add Featured Image to Posts. I have two extensions installed that are just here to help me. You don't need to install them. One is the liquid language support, and that just shows me my structure for my language. It helps kind of highlight things. And then I also have Shopify liquid template snippets that allow me to easily add some of the standard code blocks that we use in Jekyll. Now I'm running Jekyll right now in the terminal window, so I'm actually going to stop this and just remind you to make sure you use bundle exec Jekyll serve -- live reload. And when you do that, what that's doing is making sure that it runs Jekyll, and it also refreshes automatically whenever you make a change. Remember, it doesn't change when we update config.yaml, but we're not going to be doing that in this video. So since we are going to have this Jekyll post here, and I'm going to create more posts, I'm going to create 4 more posts, I want to have a unique image on the top of each one. So what I need to do is download a number of images to use for each of those posts. Also, if a post for whatever reason doesn't have a featured image, maybe they're old posts on your site, or maybe you just forgot to add one, or you just don't have the time for it, you probably want to have a default fallback image as well. So let's get those images right now. I'm going to stretch the browser out, and I'm going to go to unsplash.com. And I found this sustainability area here, and I found some really cool images by this person, and I hope I don't screw up her name. It's Dulcie Lima, and she has some really beautiful images here. So I downloaded those for my 4 posts, and I'm just going to name them image 1, 2, 3, and 4. So for example, on this one, I download it, and I'm just choosing medium for each one. I think the medium size is pretty common for most websites. So I'm going to go ahead and download those 4 and call them image 1, image 2, image 3, and image 4. The other thing that I'm going to do is download the default image. And I did find this image over here by J. Kelly Brito. And this looks like a nice kind of like default blogging image. So if I don't have a featured image, this will just display in its place. Cool, so I'll download those and then get back over here to Visual Studio Code. So I'll come over here to the Assets folder, and I'm going to create a new folder, and I'm going to call that Images. And inside the images is where I'm going to drag and drop those files that I just downloaded from Unsplash. So there's our default image if a featured image is not provided. There's our image 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now notice that I selected some images that maybe, like for example this one, that maybe are a little bit too vertical for a featured image. I'm going to show you just a hint as to how you can get something like this to display without taking up the whole screen. And I am not a designer, so there's probably lots of tricks that you can use. But one of the things that I wanted to do with my website is I always wanted to just find an image and not have to bring it into Photoshop and crop it and make it an exact size and all that. So I came up with a method for handling that. It's probably not optimal for web design, but it works for me. Okay, good. So we have our images in place. The next thing that we want to do is take a look at this post area. Now here is my posts folder, and you can see, I'm just going to expand Visual Studio Code here. You can see that there's only one post in here right now. So what I want to do is create multiple posts. Now what I'm going to do is just kind of copy this front matter in the original post that the Jekyll new Minima site created for me. I'm going to use that as my template. So I'm just going to copy that. And I'm going to create a brand new post here. It'll just be a file. It'll say 2020-08-11, and then it's just going to be called post1.markdown. And now I'm going to paste that front matter in, and I'm going to give it a title of post1. And I'm also going to, oh, you know what? I want to change the date on this. So instead of the 11th, I'm going to make this 07. There we go. And I'll make this 07 over here. And you can see now it says August 7th, so this is a previous post. And what I'm doing here is just going to create a number of these. So I'm going to create post 2, post 3, and post 4. Okay, so we have all 4 of these posts. I will point out I did one little thing here. I typed in some text that says this is a post in each and every one of these files. That way when I come in here, I just kind of wanted to verify that the text did display. So we just had some sort of content in our post, but you don't have to do that. Now, what we want to do is add the image. So let's focus on post 1 to begin with. And I'll come over here to post 1. And what I want to do is display the image. Now remember, we want the featured image to be above the title. But before we do that, we have to explore how we even get that image to begin with. So if you're writing this blog right now, you want a simple way to say, here's my featured image, and the website knows, oh, that's a featured image, I have to put that up here. So let's go ahead and do that. Up here in the Markdown file, you'll see these 3 dashes, and inside those 3 dashes is called YAML, and this allows us to add data to our page. And we can add any data we want. Now, layout, title, date, and categories come built in with Jekyll. I can create my own data, and I can just call that image. And in there, I can type /assets/images/image1.jpg. And again, I'm referring to this right here. And I'm just going to save this file. So at this point, Jekyll is fully aware that there is a Markdown file with a data element called image, and it's fully aware that there's some text here that says /images image1.jpg. So how can I prove that? Well, I can just create 2 open and close squiggly brackets, and I'm on a page right now, so I'll just do page.image and save that. And you can see there's assets, images, image1.jpg. Now remember, this is just text to Jekyll. It doesn't see it as an image, doesn't see it as a folder structure. So we have to tell Jekyll that this is an image and to display it. So just as a note here, we are using Markdown in this particular case. So remember, if I do 2 hashtags and say this is an H2 tag, it will actually go ahead and put the H2 tag. And if I type italics text and with underscores before it, and after it I get italic text. So there's markdown language for inserting an image. And so what we do is we do an exclamation mark, 2 open and close solid square brackets, and then an open and close parentheses. And I'm going to put that page.image text in there. The brackets are here for your alternative text. You want to make sure you use that so that your site is accessible. We're not using this just to keep the code slim and trim right now. So I'm going to go ahead and save this. And you'll notice right off the bat that no image is displaying. Well, in my case, I already have my site set up to go to a different folder structure that says Jekyll featured images up here on the browser. And then it goes to assets. So here's the thing is I actually need to use a command in the Shopify Liquid language where I type pipe, which is shift / relative _ URL. And now I'll save that and you can see the image displays. So there we've just set up our very own data and we've displayed that image based on the data. Now this isn't where we want it though. We want that to be at the top of the post. But before we get there, what I want to do is add this image to each and every one of my files and just change the name. So I'm just going to go ahead and quickly do that. So I'm going into post 3, changing that to image 3, post 4, and changing that to image 4, and save. Okay. Now, of course, I'm still only looking at post 1 over here on the right. So let's just go ahead and get rid of this markdown language because we're going to be using HTML moving forward. Now we want our featured image above this title here that says post 1. But how is even post 1 and this date displaying? Notice that we do have it in the YAML front matter, but we learned that when we added this image, that didn't automatically display. We had to do it ourselves. So the only content that's being displayed here by this page is this is a post text. So how does post 1 and the date get entered? Because that's going to be our key to getting the featured image up here. Well, let's take a look at this YAML front matter, and we'll notice here that there's a layout : post. And that gives us our little clue as the fact that there's a layouts folder here in Jekyll, and there's the post.html folder, file rather. And I'm just going to go ahead and bring this down so we can take a closer look at it. Now, what we can see here is that this is how this page actually gets drawn. Now, it's actually using a layout of default, and that's doing things like constantly up. That's the one that sort of manages the header and the footer, but the content for the center of the page here is right here in this file. And I can see that. Here's the page.title. That's where it says post 1. And here's the word content. And that's where it's displaying this is a post. As a matter of fact, if I came down here and just type hello world, this is just an HTML file, you can see hello world displays right here. As a matter of fact, if I come back and go to post 2, it'll show up there too. It'll actually show up on every one of my posts underneath. So this is kind of the place where we want to put the use of that image tag. So I'll get rid of that hello world. We don't need that. So we know now that post 1 gets displayed right here on this line in this h1 tag. So what we're going to do is put our image just above it. And so I'm going to say img.featured image post. And there, now I have a class called featured image post, and I'm going to display the image. Now, how am I going to display this image? What I want to do is put inside of the source the fact that we're going to use page.image with our pipe and relative URL. Now, also, just because spaces can be a problem in HTML, I'm going to use these little dashes. These dashes make sure that any blank space that we might create, it just gets collapsed. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and save this, and there. Now we can see that the featured image is displaying over post 1. Let's check this out. We're going to come back here and look at post 2. There's another image. Post 3, and post 4. Now we have a little bit of a problem here because if I come over here to Welcome to Jekyll, there is no featured image. And why is that? Well, that's because we don't have an image tag in that one. This is an old post that was originally created or whatever, or I didn't want to add it. And so I want to add the default image. So we're going to have to add a little bit of business logic in here. It's pretty straightforward. I'm going to do an if statement. And so it's saying if condition is met, then do this thing. So I'm going to just come up here, move the code over and indent it. And if page.image exists. Okay, so that's all I need to do. If page.image, if one exists, then display this image. So I'll save. You can see no image is getting displayed here. But then I can say else. And here is where I can go ahead and type, as a matter of fact, I'm just going to outdent that a little bit and just get the formatting so it's the same. There we go. I'll go ahead and just copy this line. And instead of doing page.name, what I want to do is type /assets/images/ and remember now we have image-default.jpg. Now I'm going to go ahead and save this, and I'm going to point something out. You're going to see all these error messages down here. And that's because what Jekyll's looking for right now is a variable. And this is not a variable, this is some text. So it's a good idea to create a variable. This is the best practice here, using the word assign. And now I'm going to say assign PI, or I'll just type post image, equals /assets/images/image-default.jpg. And now I'm going to use this post image variable right down here instead. Okay, so get that? If an image exists, then just display it using page.image. If it doesn't exist, then assign a variable that has the value for the default image, and then just display that image the same way we did before using the variable. So let me just save that. There. Now we have the default image for our Welcome to Jekyll, yet all of our other posts are using the images that we originally selected. Now, if we go and look into these, the problem is that these posts are, this is our content. We want people to read this stuff. And right now, our images are taking up 3/4 or more of the page, depending on which one you look at. And that's not acceptable. We want to do something to make this a little bit more reasonable. And so that's what we're going to work on next. So if you'll recall, we use this class of featured image post. I'm going to copy this because I'm going to use this to do some styling. If I come back here to the Explorer, you'll notice that there is a _SASS or SAS folder. And then we have a number of files. And if I go into the Minima theme, you'll find a layout.scss file. And inside this file is basically the way the entire site looks. And if I scroll down far enough, you'll see that's the site footer, and then we have the page content, and that's this right here. and we have posts, oh sorry, that's the center part for a page, and then we have posts, which is the center part for any of these posts. So I'm going to go ahead and put my new CSS down here. So I'm just going to go and collapse this for a moment, and I'm just going to type dot and put in my featured image post class, and then I'm just going to say the width of that image should be 100%. And I'm going to save this, but you won't see any changes here because the image is already 100%. But now I want this image to take up a lot less space. So what I'm going to do is say height is 150 pixels. There. So this looks a lot better in terms of the amount of space that it's taking up, but it looks absolutely horrible because it squashed the image. So again, I'm not a designer. I'm going to show you the one way that I do it, and this is to use object fit : cover. And what this does is it kind of crops the image, but gives you the core part of the image. It kind of centers the content a little bit. So now that I've done that, you can see that it's cropped the image, and it's cropped kind of the center part of the image. And it actually looks pretty good. So let me come over here. Here's the welcome to Jekyll. You can still see that that works pretty good. And also, by the way, if I resize, you'll see that more or less of that content gets displayed. If I resize too much, it's still just 100% of the amount of content that the website's defined to have. So there we go. So we have kind of a responsive banner here. The one thing I will point out, if you just use this method as a way to kind of fudge any images that get displayed, just beware. Like here's that tree image. If I were to comment this out, and actually I'll comment all this code out here for a moment. This is beautiful tree, but it's kind of down here at the bottom. It's not centered. So, you know, when I use this object fit cover, it doesn't look the best. So just be aware that if you use this method that I'm showing you, do find content that's sort of in the center, or you're going to find yourself cutting and cropping and pasting using Photoshop or your favorite tool. Okay, that said though, we now have everything set up on our site so we can always see a featured image at the top of our page. And of course, you can modify this information however you would like, setting the height and width and using different methods for displaying the image. Now, the next video that I'm going to show you is how to get this image onto a post reel like this, so we can see each one of the images on here. And then finally, in a follow-on video that I'm still working on, it's going to show you how you can reuse that code so that you can even do some more advanced things like do a featured post and things like that. But that's going to be a little bit further down the line. I'm posting this on August 11th, 2020. Thank you for watching this video. If you want more like this, please like, comment, and click the bell to support my channel.